This episode is presented to you in the style of an audiobook. Imagine being able to glance at someone and immediately understand what they're thinking, what they want, and who they truly are. In his book Read People Like a Book, social interaction expert Patrick King explains that although actual mind reading isn't possible, you can get surprisingly close by learning to interpret speech patterns, actions, and body language. In this episode, using the insights shared in the book, you'll discover how to observe and understand people more accurately. First, we'll look at the common challenges we face when trying to read others. Next, we'll examine the key motivations that shape human behavior. In the third section, you'll learn how to decode nonverbal cues, the quiet signals people express through posture and movement. And finally, we'll conclude with practical methods for recognizing dishonesty. Part 1. The obstacles we face when reading people. Most of us like to believe we're skilled at judging character. We meet someone, have a brief conversation, and quickly assume we understand who they are. In truth, evaluating another person is far more complex. People regularly misread cues and form inaccurate assumptions about someone's thoughts or emotions. Patrick King explains that to avoid these errors, you must be aware of the factors that can distort your view of a person's behavior. So how can you improve your ability to judge character? King provides a set of guidelines designed to reduce misinterpretation and help you make more accurate assessments. Point 4 prerequisites. First, you must know their baseline behavior and how they normally act. Second, look for patterns. Don't rely on a single moment or gesture. Third, consider the context. What's happening around them that might explain their behavior? And fourth, question your own biases. Are you projecting your feelings onto them? Now let's explain each pitfall in detail. 1. Know the baseline. The first mistake is failing to learn how someone typically behaves. If you want to understand a person, study their baseline before hunting for deviations. Think of how detectives on TV observe a suspect's routine. They don't draw conclusions until they've seen what's normal. To read someone accurately, you must know their usual manner so you can spot real changes. For example, if a friend normally has low energy, their lack of enthusiasm about something isn't necessarily indifference. It may simply be their default state. 2. Don't judge from one moment. The second trap Patrick King points out is relying on a single instant to explain someone's behavior. One data point rarely tells the whole story. Imagine you're presenting at work and notice your coworker Dave frowning. Your first thought might be, he hates my idea. But was that frown the only thing you observed? Did Dave give feedback later, or was he squinting because of a migraine? One moment can mislead. You need multiple observations to form a reliable conclusion about someone's inner state. 3. Account for context. The third error is ignoring the context around a behavior. Without context, you'll likely misread what's happening. If someone speaks loudly in a crowded room, you might assume they're angry, when in fact they're just trying to be heard over noise. Also remember that your presence can change their behavior. If you're interviewing someone for a job, your authority might make them more reserved or anxious, which could be mistaken for disinterest or evasiveness. 4. Check your biases. Finally, question your own assumptions. Are you projecting your feelings, fears, or expectations onto the other person? Biases subtly shape interpretation. What looks like hostility to you might be stress, distraction, or cultural difference. Before you conclude, ask yourself how your perspective could be skewing the read. In short, learn what's normal for the person, gather multiple data points. Always consider context and audit your own biases. Follow these 4 steps and you'll avoid common errors when trying to understand someone's behavior that appear more nervous or reserved than they usually are, which can influence how you judge their confidence or character. Finally, let's look at the most challenging part, your personal biases. We all carry them, whether we recognize it or not. If you tend to be more suspicious, you might assume dishonesty even when there is none. 4. Instance, if someone avoids eye contact, you may believe they're hiding something, but they might simply be shy or introverted. Patrick King reminds us that our assumptions often distort our view. Many times, what we believe we notice in others reflects our own doubts, fears, or preconceived ideas more than the individual in front of us. So if you want to understand people more accurately, you must avoid projecting your own feelings onto them. Keeping your emotions separate from the moment allows you to interpret their actions with more clarity. Part 2. Understanding the driving forces behind human behavior. What truly motivates human behavior? This is a question that has intrigued psychologists, thinkers, and anyone who has ever wondered why people act the way they do. According to Patrick King, there is always a reason behind someone's actions. By learning what pushes a person to make certain choices, you begin to uncover the why.to truly understand someone's behavior. You need to look at two major parts of their inner world, their motivations and their personality. A person's motivations are shaped by several influences working together: subconscious drives, the pleasure principle, basic human needs, and the instinct to protect the ego. These elements shape how we act, how we react, and what we try to achieve. Subconscious urges are the parts of ourselves we usually keep hidden. According to King, this is where many of our deeper motivations exist. It's the cluttered area of the mind filled with insecurities, creative impulses, dislikes, and even forms of self-criticism. These are emotions we often avoid, not only from others, but also from ourselves. The challenge is that these buried urges don't stay buried forever. King notes that they often rise to the surface in unexpected ways, sometimes leading to behaviors that seem unlike the person. For example, imagine someone who has always dreamed of starting their own business, but never followed through. When a friend launches a startup, they might downplay that success, not out of hostility, but because it awakens feelings of regret or missed opportunities. These subconscious desires guide us more than we notice. But once you recognize what's motivating someone, their behavior becomes easier to understand, and you can respond more thoughtfully. The pleasure principle is another factor that shapes motivation. King explains that much of our behavior comes down to something simple: seeking comfort and avoiding discomfort. This instinct is as old as humanity and deeply influences how we choose. However, this principle isn't always as simple as it sounds. King outlines two rules that help clarify it. Rule 1. Avoiding pain is stronger than seeking pleasure. When we face a choice, our survival instinct naturally focuses on preventing harm rather than chasing reward. Picture a bag of money lying on train tracks with a train approaching. The thought of grabbing it may appear for a moment, but the instinct to avoid danger will always dominate. This instinct appears in everyday decisions too. Think of someone stuck in a job they dislike. It's rarely because they enjoy it. It's often because the fear of financial uncertainty feels worse than the stress of staying. Pain, or the fear of it, often shapes choices far more than the possibility of pleasure. Rule 2. Emotions override logic. Even when we clearly know the rational thing to do, our feelings can lead us elsewhere. Emotions carry strong influence and often guide our actions in ways that aren't logically consistent. For instance, you might know that staying up late to binge a show is unwise. Yet as soon as that next episode begins, the excitement outweighs your reasoning, and you keep watching despite knowing you'll feel tired the next day. Motivation is also shaped by the hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy works like a ladder, with each level depending on the one below it. At the base are the essentials: food, water, and shelter. Above that comes safety, stability, financial security, and health. Once these are in place, people seek connection, relationships, friendships, and a sense of belonging. Higher up is self-esteem, where we search for respect and recognition. At the very top is self-actualization, where we focus on creativity, purpose, and meaningful contribution. To understand someone's behavior, you must consider where they are on this hierarchy. Are they focused on basic survival? Are they looking for safety, connection, confidence, or a sense of meaning? Identifying this gives you clearer insight into what drives their actions. The element that strongly influences a person's behavior is the drive to protect their ego. At its foundation, the ego represents our sense of identity, how we view ourselves, and how we hope others see us. Everyone wants to feel competent, intelligent, and valued. But when that picture is challenged, reactions can become complicated. Think about it. How do people behave when their self-image is on the line? Some may become defensive, shift responsibility, or hide their weaknesses. For instance, someone who prides themselves on being excellent at their job might make a serious error. Instead of acknowledging it, they might blame external factors or point to a colleague. This urge to shield the ego significantly shapes behavior. If you want to understand why someone reacts a certain way, Ask yourself which part of their identity feels threatened. The second aspect influencing behavior is personality. Personality is the characteristic way a person thinks and responds, forming the core of who they are. According to King, it's a steady pattern that allows you to see how someone typically approaches situations. When you understand a person's personality, their choices and reactions become easier to anticipate. For example, you may notice a friend who always remains composed in stressful situations while others lose control. That shows a pattern of calmness and logical thinking. Or you might work with someone who delays tasks but always manages to complete them right before the deadline. That reflects a preference for working under pressure. These repeated actions aren't random. They reveal the deeper traits that make up a person's personality. Similarly, someone with a humorous personality shows a consistent habit of making jokes or using wit during conversations. To briefly recap part 2, if you want to understand why a person behaves in a certain manner, focus on two main elements: their motivations and the consistent patterns expressed through their personality. Motivations drive her choices, what she wants, fears, or needs, while personality patterns show how she regularly responds to the world around her. Part 3. How to understand nonverbal cues. People constantly reveal things about themselves, often without realizing it. Their gestures, expressions, tone, and even the way they dress communicate information. Your role is to look past their words, observe their movements, listen to how they speak, and pay attention to small details. Each detail adds clarity, helping you understand what they truly feel. King explains that nonverbal behavior comes from the emotional, instinctive part of the brain, the part that cannot easily hide the truth. We can choose our words, but our posture, facial signals, and tone often expose our real reactions. First, let's talk about stress. It is one of the simplest states to identify. When people feel uneasy, they tend to engage in self-comforting behaviors. These include rubbing their hands, touching their neck, or adjusting their clothes. Picture someone fixing their collar or rolling a ring during a tense moment. It's the body's natural method of soothing itself. There are also the well-known fight, flight, or freeze responses, our brain's automatic reactions to perceived pressure. These still appear in normal social settings. A person leaning back or shifting away may be in flight mode, trying to create distance. A tight fist or quick, sharp hand movement might show a fight response, and freeze often looks like someone sitting rigidly or gripping the edge of a table. Now let's look at the face. Microexpressions are tiny, involuntary reactions. They happen so fast that many people fail to notice them. For example, someone might say, "I'm fine," but a brief tightening around their eyes may reveal the opposite. These micro-movements act as small insights into their honest emotions and learning to notice. Contradicting micro-expressions can help you read people accurately. You may have observed someone copying your gestures or posture while talking. That's mirroring, and it's usually a sign of comfort or connection. If someone mirrors your actions, crossing their arms when you do or leaning in as you speak, it suggests they feel in sync with you. A lack of mirroring, however, can indicate discomfort or emotional distance. Personal space also communicates a lot about confidence. Confident people tend to take up more space. They sit upright and use broader, more open movements. Gestures that keep the torso open signal ease and engagement. Conversely, someone who feels unsure may shrink down, hunch their shoulders, or cross their arms to make themselves appear smaller. These physical signals offer quick clues about a person's comfort and confidence in the moment. Speech gives another window into emotion and personality. Confident people usually speak clearly and steadily. Nervous people often talk too fast, stumble, or lose their thread. Clothing also communicates. How someone dresses can reflect how they see themselves or how they want others to perceive them. Context matters. Being overdressed at a casual gathering might indicate a desire to stand out or to assert status. Part 4. How to detect lies. Patrick King notes that a main reason people learn to read others is to spot deception. Nobody likes being misled, and recognizing dishonesty can be a real advantage in negotiations, relationships, and everyday interactions. That said, catching a liar is challenging. People lie for different reasons and in different ways. Some become visibly anxious. Others remain composed. The most practiced deceivers can hide their tells. So how do you cut through the noise and find the truth? Don't confront the claim head-on. Get them to keep talking. Lying is tiring. It requires mental effort to maintain a false story, and the more someone talks, the greater the chance they'll make mistakes. Start with open-ended questions in a friendly, non-threatening tone. You're not interrogating. You're encouraging them to tell the story. If they say they were at a cafe, ask what they ordered or how the atmosphere felt. Open questions let them expand, which increases the likelihood of inconsistencies. After you hear the broad story, move to specifics. Ask about details they likely didn't rehearse. What song was playing, which seat they chose, or other sensory details. Truthful people tend to recall small, natural details. Those inventing a story often struggle. Try a subtle test. Gently misquote a small fact. If they first said they arrived at 3 o'clock, later say, "So you got there around 2:30, right?" Watch whether they correct you. Minor mismatches like this can reveal whether their account is steady. Observe behavior as the conversation continues. Don't fixate on a single sign like fidgeting. Look for unusual patterns. Does their demeanor shift from relaxed to tense when the subject changes? Do they dodge with vague answers or deflect with counterquestions like, "Why would you even ask that?" Those are red flags. Another common tell, unnecessary over-explanation. Honest people are comfortable saying, "I'm not sure," or "I don't remember." Liars often fill gaps with excessive detail to make their story appear airtight. Ultimately, spotting deception is about noticing patterns, changes in tone, behavior, and small cracks in a narrative. The truth tends to surface when you remain calm, curious, and observant. So when you suspect something isn't right, resist jumping to conclusions. Let them talk and watch closely. The answers will often reveal themselves.